It's been a year of covering various things related to Seattle's land use and transportation. I think it's time for a quick progress report on how things are going for the Emerald City. With regards to transportation, the light rail expansion is chugging along with the East Side Starter line going from South Bellevue all the way up to Redmond Technology Center, ready to open this month. This was supposed to cross over to connect to Seattle, but due to some fuck-ups from a contractor, shit's delayed until 2025. There's also some progress with expansions going northbound to Linwood as well, with an anticipated opening this summer. One thing about this expansion though is basically all these new stops are park and rides. Turn that parking into literally anything else please. Those homes didn't sacrifice themselves to become an empty garage. I'd rather take a couple of generic 5/1s any day. And that's not all folks. Sound Transit is also continuing to plan out their future expansions. There was a public engagement event held recently to explore options on how to activate the Union Station building on the edge of the International District for Sound Transit 3. Here, they kind of revealed the new timeline for their EIS report, with the final draft expected to be released in 2026, 3 years later than what it had planned to be at the time of recording for my first video. This probably had to do with the introduction of the North of CID and South of CID alternative, and the fuck shit going around with the South Lake Union stations by Amazon and Vulcan Real Estate. In the meeting, they had some diagrams showing off some concepts on how to transform 2nd Avenue Extension and South Dearborn Street to become more pedestrian friendly, like fully pedestrianizing the area on 2nd Avenue Extension and turning the gas station on Dearborn into some pedestrian space. This hints to the fact that the North of CID and South of CID stations are more or less going to be what Sound Transit is planning on building, and they are trying to grasp at ways on how to make the pedestrian experience of these stations less shitty when heading toward the International District. While these new pedestrianized spaces would be nice to have, we can't even pedestrianize Pike Place, so much like 4th Avenue and the Midtown stations, these concepts are just transit fan service and are unlikely to actually happen. Mistakes like this were made before, like having the light rail run at grade along MLK, which led to vehicle collisions and pedestrian deaths along this corridor. I can't help but feel like I'm watching the same mistake get made again in real time. On a lighter note, transit is not just rail, but also buses. There have been some progress with bus rapid transit in Seattle. The construction for the Rapid Ride G line is going along as bus stops and shelters are cropping up along the corridor. This project is expected to be done during the fall of this year, making travel from downtown to Madison Valley quicker with frequencies of every 6 minutes at peak times. Other bus rapid transit lines like the Rapid Ride J line is wrapping up the planning phase with the final project map released this March. The line will take riders from downtown up to U District by the way of South Lake Union and East Lake. There was an option for the plan to go all the way up to Roosevelt, but they ended up going with the scaled back option, stopping at U District. The planning for this line wouldn't go without some NIMBY drama. The J line goes through the East Lake neighborhood, and the community council for the neighborhood was split on supporting this bus line, with 4 members in support and 6 members against. The 4 members that supported the Rapid Ride J line sent a letter to the City of Seattle expressing their support. These members ended up getting removed from the board for doing so by the ones who were against the project. Well, despite the persnickety odd NIMBYs on the board, the J line appears to be moving along with construction anticipated as soon as this year. These rapid ride projects were made possible due to a tax levy to move Seattle that was approved by voters in 2015. It helped partially fund these new lines as well as other infrastructure changes. Additional upgrades to bus lines 48, 44, 40, and 7 were made possible due to this levy. Yet another reminder of how voting locally helps make transit happen. The levy also went into biking infrastructure, like the Burke-Gilman Missing Link, which is currently delayed by ongoing litigation. This part of the trail has been tied up with 30 years worth of bickering. The current tea is that the proposed route would direct cyclists off of Schill Shoal over to Leary Avenue despite public support for continuing on Schill Shoal. It's suggested that the City of Seattle is doing this to appease the businesses on this portion of the trail. If this Leary Avenue alternative ends up making it through the litigation, it will be another example of how disjointed and clunky the bike lane network is in Seattle. It seems like every bike lane or trail redirects cyclists left, right, and every which direction except straight forward. This connection from downtown to Georgetown in SoDa looks a bit wild. It just twists and turns all the way down. Imagine if cars had to drive like this just to go to Georgetown. The Pike and Pine bike network is in construction right now, but it's awkward to use because cyclists basically have to switch from one side of the road to the other, crossing traffic to use this new connection. There is some nicer bike infrastructure coming in as well. like the Alaskan Wave waterfront bike lane that took a lot of advocacy work to keep on one side of the road instead of flip-flopping across the road like in some of the early designs for the bike lane. Well, actually there will be some detours, but only on some days. Can't win them all, I guess. Bike lane progress is happening, but just not ideal like usual. I guess Seattle is better than Bellevue, whose city council voted to allow for the deprioritization of the Bike Bellevue plan, and planned to create a connected bike lane network around downtown Bellevue. All because their city council believes that slowing down drivers by 0.2 miles per hour is worse than mauling about 4 to 8 cyclists with cars. All American cities have road projects, but some are better than others. The Montlake lid has been making progress and should be completed sometime this year, though I think the lid would be better over I-5, which did secure $2 million in federal funding for planning and even further studies. There was also an opportunity to give input to change a Strode for the better. SDOT recently started public engagement for the Aurora Ave project. Many of the proposed redesigns put a bigger emphasis on bus lanes with some designs that include a bike lane and expanded sidewalks. The suggestions they had were kinda limited, and they've been basically doing this type of outreach for years. So let's hope the ball gets rolling on this project sooner than later. Zoning is a set of regulations and policies that determine where you can build, what you can build, and how big you can build it. Usually cities will have new plans to update and change zoning as their city grows and changes. These are often called comprehensive plans. The initial draft of the One Seattle comprehensive plan dropped and everyone was disappointed. From YouTubers, politicians, and urbanists. Like, damn bro, how did you get a video out in a couple of days right after it dropped? The reason why people were disappointed was because the plan didn't appear to change that much from the existing plan. Like comparing the current zoning map to the new one, they basically look the fucking same. When accommodating for growth, zoning is changed to allow for more housing, like allowing for apartments, condos, and townhouses to be built in more places in the city. This is referred to as upzoning. Seeing how this new map doesn't change much from the current one, it's telling us that there isn't going to be much upzoning, but the devil is in the details. Let's take a closer look and break things down. First, there are regional centers. These are basically areas that have the densest and tallest buildings. Areas for a lot of people and activity, places you think of when you think of a city. And they barely added anything new here. It's basically this little area around Seattle Center. A step down from the regional center is the urban center. These are mostly going to be mid-rise housing with mixed use, and as you can guess again, there isn't much change here either, like a few expanded blobs on the map, like this new one near a future light rail infill station. One more step down is the neighborhood center. This is a quote-unquote new category. These are going to be small and local blobs of middle housing and small commercial uses in low-density residential communities, like this neighborhood cafe. But the thing is, a lot of these places are already zoned for this stuff. Like here in Montlake, where this neighborhood center already exists. They didn't add anything new here, this shit has been around for decades. And this one in Interbay, it's literally on top of a rail yard. What kind of neighborhood center is this shit? Lastly, we have urban neighborhoods. These were basically single-family home neighborhoods, but because of House Bill 1110, cities like Seattle have to upzone their single-family home neighborhoods to allow for middle housing. But that doesn't tell the complete story. Within zoning regulations, there's something called floor area ratio. This is the ratio between the floor area of your home and the area of the property that it's on. The higher this number, the more house you can build on a property. With this new urban neighborhood zoning, the maximum allowed floor area ratio is 0.9, and it decreases as you have fewer units on the lot, meaning if you want to build a duplex, you are capped at a lower ratio than a fourplex. So why is this bad? Well, it means you can't have larger multifamily units on these lots, like a duplex with 3 or more bedrooms. But also, these new floor area ratio limits are actually worse than what is allowed in a current existing zoning with accessory dwelling units. Take a look at this. A single family home with an accessory dwelling unit has a higher floor area ratio than a duplex allowed in our new zoning. Or a single family home with 2 ADUs has a higher ratio than this triplex under new zoning. This also makes sixplexes impractical as well. The floor area ratio acts like a cap on how many people can actually live on a piece of property. A 4-bedroom house and a fourplex of 1 bedrooms is still going to house the same number of people. It's like those school pizza parties where they cut the slices extra skinny instead of ordering more pizza. This plan lacks any real changes to allow for more housing, but what are some of the implications of this? The big one is displacement and affordability. If you don't have enough homes in the core city to meet expected growth, people are going to be displaced from the city. Another one is finances. The city of Seattle is facing a budget shortfall at the moment, and one of the ways that can close the gap is denser housing. Denser housing gives more property tax per lot, and utilities and infrastructure are cheaper to service per resident. Okay, this plan thoroughly blows ass. How do we make it better though? First, we need to dive headfirst into transit-oriented development. Looking back at the map, there are lines that show frequent transit routes in the city. Building denser housing near these lines is the easy way to add transit-accessible density. In my opinion, all land within a 10-minute walk of a frequent transit stop should be at least an urban center density. This would resolve a big lack of urban centers and density in this part of Northeast Seattle and Magnolia. These neighborhoods are not pulling their weight when it comes to densifying. Second, we need the areas surrounding regional centers to be upzoned to urban centers. Let's look at Montlake. This neighborhood is within walking distance of a light rail stop, it's getting a freeway lid, and it's right next to the University District Regional Center. Yet, it is highly suburban and low density. With close proximity to amenities, it should be an urban center just like the nearby Eastlake neighborhood, which has mixed-use zoning, mid-rise housing, and commercial uses. Finally, let's bump up the floor area ratios on all urban neighborhood zoning. They should be at least double of what is being proposed to bring them more in line with some of Seattle's current low-rise multifamily housing. There are multiple public engagement events for the One Seattle plan happening in April and May, where you can voice your opinions to improve the plan. Public engagement events can also be found for the Sound Transit light rail expansions, the Aurora Ave project, and the upcoming Seattle Transportation Levy.